Ciara. Thank you so much for joining me today on our very special conversation on where we are in our evolutionary journey and how we are helping other highly evolved beings on their evolutionary journey.
Thank you, Aisling. It's such a privilege and a delight to speak to you, as always.
Wonderful. So just to give people context of how we've met and who we are, I'll myself first and introduce you then. So I'm FitzGibbon for anyone who doesn't know me, and I'm a holistic nutrition coach, and I work with highly conscious beings who are on an evolutionary journey, and I use nutrition as a tool, and we're going to go in much deeper into what I offer and what Ciara offers in this conversation. So Ciara, thanks so much. You're a visionary coach, or how would you explain? Yes.
Depends on who I'm talking to. In a nutshell, I'm essentially a spiritual mentor, and I say many different versions of that: consciousness catalyst, visionary coach, and so on and so forth. But it's essentially spiritual mentoring that I do.
Yeah.
And like you, I also work with highly evolved beings on an accelerated evolutionary journey and help them to step into their full potential, which usually means drawing out of them their true, unique song that they're here to sing, and helping them to really lay out their lives in such a way that they can fulfill that. And like you too, I don't use nutrition, of course, that's your forte, but I work with a lot of the tools of the mystic and Ciara, the Bavasvata, the runes, the fragrance alchemy, and all of these beautiful things, and I'm sure we'll touch on those.
Yeah.
And they are specifically for the type of beings that we're talking about here. I'm sure we'll share a bit about that.
Absolutely, definitely, we'll go deeper into that. And just before we came on to record this conversation, we were talking about how we first met. And I think it was around 2011, maybe the end of 2010, coming into 2011 anyway, during that time. And I had shared my vision online, probably for the very first time, putting out there publicly. And that vision was of me meeting my soulmate and having a beautiful homestead, having organic farms, and having a healing retreat on the land, with my own home there, and the healing retreat, and having people from around the world coming, and this whole vision came through for me, and I shared it, and then you commented on my post on Facebook, and we instantly connected, and you could see who I was, and it was like very, it was very catalyzing to have that contact, and we clicked. We've been in our lives ever since, and we've been really, really, our relationship has helped me grow immensely, and has kind of directed me into the work of Almeen, like back when I met you in Dublin, I think during the time that I was doing the campaign with the Flora campaign. You were mentioning different tools about Almeen, and I slowly kind of dipped my toe in, and then I actually realized that this work was for me as well. So it's just been, I think we've evolved, a lot of parallels in our journeys as well. And, we're evolving together, but I also think that we both have walked a very dedicated path, and like we were saying earlier, we've gotten to a place where we can now freely share and actually help others on their journey, through all of the different many tools and healing techniques and all of the different experiences that we've had.
Absolutely.
Over the past, say, 8-9 years, but even before that, but particularly the past 8 years. And it's just really, I suppose, so really important for us to be able to clearly articulate, okay, this is what we do and this is who we're here for. Because like me, before even I met you and before I became aware of all of these tools that are for us, I felt very lost, and I felt, different things that are out there in the mainstream weren't serving me and weren't working for me. And I always felt like I was always searching and then seeking. So I just feel people who are going to come across this video on YouTube, or we're going to share it on Facebook, they're going to be having those similar feelings. And I just feel it's really an honor and, a really important calling to actually put this information out there and to show everyone that resonates with this, that there is full support for them to actually come into who they fully are and to understand their uniqueness, and to also not feel that there's anything wrong with them, maybe because they might have had that fed to them through their experience in society.
Absolutely. That's a really interesting point, Aisling, because I recall when we met each other as well, there was just an instant, you're interesting.
Exactly.
I'm interesting. We somehow get each other, you know, and we connected over unspokenly the fact that we've lived very odd lives.
Yeah.
We've never quite fitted in with how things have gone on. And I know you've managed to mask yourself among people a little bit better than I managed to. But you've always, you know,
just about, Ciara,
just about, yeah. You know, we've always been a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just got that in each other. And the people that we're here to work with are like that too. You know, they might have got by with just about managing to mask themselves in ordinary society, but always felt a little bit odd, a little bit like aliens on a foreign planet sort of thing. And now is the time where we have an incredible opportunity, each of us who are like this, to recognize who we really are and to start to carve out a life that suits us as the type of being that we really are, fulfilling our purpose here on the planet. We don't have to be the aliens anymore. Yeah. We actually get to come home to, hang on a minute, I can live a fulfilled life here and I don't have to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. I just feel such a groundswell at the moment with that.
Completely. And I think there's it's just, I think as we're all coming into ourselves, like it's putting out that resonance into the field that we're all connected into. So I think we're all feeling it on some level. And you know, for me, obviously I've had major life events happen this year with the passing of my dear mom, who is also exactly like us, and you know, and that's brought us onto this journey of moving away from fear, moving from fear to trust, and seeing beyond the separation that we've experienced up to now, and moving beyond the programming of what it means for somebody to move out of the physical, and all of these things that we're so conditioned to fear and to have all these stories surrounding them that obscure what actually is happening.
Absolutely.
So
and you were just saying there, Aisling, about moving out of the physical, and I assume by that you mean moving out of the base level programming of physical life being a totally static thing and opening it up so that we realize that there's so much more there. Which brings us to actually, I'd love if you could actually say a little bit about, because I'd love to hear more myself. Part of your work, I know, is actually using nutrition as a tool for cellular activation. And you've described to me before that one of the things that does is it opens up physical life so that you're able to receive more of your potential. Yeah. Do you want to say a bit about that?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like, you know, I use nutrition as a tool, an evolutionary tool, so that, say if you're, you know, primarily working with the physical body and opening up the cells, so cellular activation through, you know, different ways of eating and, you know, maybe certain minerals or certain healing protocols. And what that does is like it opens up the energy fields. So when your system is closed down and maybe it's not in its full energy system, or it's not in its full optimal energy, then that actually prevents you from receiving the outside world in a way that you can when you're actually fully energetically open and aligned. So it's like using the physical body to actually open up all of the other energy centers, like the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and the soul. And it allows you to have your full multi-dimensional experience. But again, it's not just some, you know, spiritual concept or, you know, some abstract idea. It's actually fully embodying all of that with the physical body, which is where we're able to presence our power and we're able to root into who we are. And that's where all the other things flow through, as opposed to them being all separate and, you know, compartmentalized.
Fantastically described. So like opening up physical life, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny because it's even like what you were saying about like using, even say things like fragrance alchemy and the runes and all these things, and they all fit in together because essentially they're to, you know, dissolve any blockages or any old stories or any limiting beliefs. And again, they all have to be put into a combination where, you know, it's a dedicated journey. It's not just, I'll just play with this and I'll just do this. It's actually, how can you bring all those elements together to achieve what you're actually wanting to achieve with yourself?
That is beautifully described. I just love that. It's so amazing that we have this vehicle of physical life to actually attune to our highest spiritual potential from, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so wonderful. And also it I think it's like, you know, moving away from, say, the kind of mainstream spirituality that is very mind-based,
Yeah,
and much more, would we say, more masculine based, rather, you know, where we are now, like cosmically, it's like it's that feminine reality coming through, and that has to be,
absolutely.
I think, the physical body, as opposed to just using the mind alone, or just
Precisely.
using an aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you know as well, this is a huge aspect in my work as well. And I noticed that. So I work with visionaries, same as you. And I've noticed, well, we've got a few favorites that we like, haven't we?
Yeah.
Visionaries, creatives, high achievers of all kinds, those who are really determined to actually make the best out of their lives. And specifically, my people are the spiritual visionaries. And I noticed that one of the big difficulties that most spiritual visionaries have is that they try to bypass physical life. And it's only through physical life that we're going to be able to achieve our highest visions, because that's what we're here for. We're here to physicalize our greatest purpose. So it's amazing how many parallels there are in what we're doing. And, you know, exactly, with the differences as well. And I think really this is actually the crux of what the journey is right now, isn't it? It's landing fully in physical life with our full spirituality intact.
Yeah, exactly. Without having to compromise it or diminish it, or, you know, any of those things that we feel we may have to be in the physical.
Precisely. You mentioned something really beautiful on that recently. In fact, you've said it a few times in some of the videos that you've been doing, just talking about your recent journey with Martha. And it's about really, you know, a lot of people think when we're talking about living a life of grace, for example, and carving out a life where we're following our inspiration and we're living according to joy and so on, a lot of people think that that means you don't have any challenging experiences. But what it really means is bringing these vast spiritual perspectives into the most physical things that you possibly can, which you've obviously been exemplifying so beautifully with how you've been walking through this.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that though as well, Ciara, because I think that's a very key point, that it's not to say that, you know, you learn spiritual like truths and principles, and that it's not that like your whole life is just going to be, you know, everything's so easy now because you have cracked the code type of thing. But it's like, it's actually applying them, as you say, to the most human challenges, and then seeing how that actually changes your whole experience of that challenge, and how much potential actually opens from that challenge, as opposed to, you know, seeing life is kind of happening to you. And it's really, I suppose, it's using whatever unique life situations that we're all navigating as the fuel that we need for the evolution that we're undergoing, and what change is coming through us.
That is absolutely beautifully described. The magic is in the application, really, isn't it?
Completely, yeah.
It's incredible.
And sometimes, like, because I know myself, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can you know, relate to this, where, you know, you hear about the next kind of tool, or you hear about the next, you know, new concept or new type of maybe spiritual application, or, you know, whatever's out there, and you kind of put your power onto that. But I think really, like, where we are at now, and, you know, both of us in our own work, what we do with our own selves and with clients, is we're using the tools masterfully, that they're not, like, the power isn't in the tool, they're a tool for us to actually master our own self and our own being.
Precisely.
You know, and I think that's a very very important thing to say that, because I think sometimes there's like, oh, if I have all these things, then everything will turn around. But actually, no, you could have the best, we'll just use an analogy of the best gardening equipment, but if you're not actually using it and applying it in the right way, they're not of any use to you. They have to be actually masterfully applied and woven into the fabric of your life.
Absolutely. That is an absolutely brilliant analogy. Something that I notice a lot in my work as well is that many have the idea that, oh, I can't live my full potential because I've got X, Y, or Z going on. But really what this is all about, and again, you're exemplifying that so beautifully in what you've been going through recently, and the way that you've been navigating it, it's about seizing those things that are your experiences and using them as the fuel to live your full potential, very far away from can't because. It's more, this is my power source. How do I actually open that up so that it serves me in living my full potential?
Completely. And then when you come from that place of that approach, you actually realize how perfect things are, even though they may appear to you on a surface level as a disaster, or so not perfect, because even the night before my own mum went into hospital, I wrote a post on Facebook, and I wrote like a meme which said how life is unfolding, like the perfection of life unfolding never ceases to amaze me. Or no, is that the right way? Is that, yeah,
I think that is what you said, actually. Yeah, I remember that.
And like, it's just like, it's so mind-blowingly perfect the way things unfold. And then what happened. But then as I've been able to navigate this from this perspective, it has been has perfectly unfolded for my evolution and for Martha's evolution and for what we're here to do. But if you were to look at it from another angle, you say, oh, well, that was actually the thing that would definitely prevent you from ever living your full potential.
Absolutely.
It really is. That's why I say it's like moving from fear to trust. So fear is, oh my gosh, this is what's happened. But actually trusting it is going, this is happening perfectly, like, and how can I attune to that, and what do I need to do, like, to grow with it, and why has this shown up for me? And
it's beautifully described.
I'm finding all the different power sources within it, as opposed to the other approach could be, this is terrible, and it's going to just squash me down, and it's going to prevent me from ever going towards that potential.
Absolutely. There's another really interesting thing in that as well, and it's that there is a spiritual, commonly applied spiritual perspective that also misses the mark. And it's, okay, yeah, it's all perfect, but you also don't address your human level experience in it. And that's problematic as well. And again, so much of what we're talking about here is, it's not about polarity. And I think you mentioned something when we were talking earlier about, really, this is about moving beyond duality in terms of how you're functioning. And I think you described it in the context of nutrition.
Yeah, I'll say that now after.
Yeah.
In a little while. Yeah.
So it's not about, it's perfect, but I don't address my actual experience. Again, you're exemplifying that so beautifully with, you have the perspective, you know exactly what's going on, but you also move through the grieving process, even though you know she's not gone, and so on. There isn't a duality here. It's about holding the vast perspective while living our human lives at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the way to do it.
It is, yeah, because and that's very important, I suppose, to hear that. It's like, I'm not like, oh, I've moved into like a transcendental space where I'm like, it's so totally perfect that Mark passed away and I'm fine. I'm also I'm having that perspective, but whilst I'm also grieving the loss of her physically and going through that and honoring that, and also seeing, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do in my life that this experience is asking me to do? Like, in terms of where I am, it's really stepping into my own power and owning who I am, and what action steps do I need to do to actually achieve that, and like what is showing up for me to do. And that's so clear now. So I think it's very important that that there is that awareness that we're not saying that we're saying everything's perfect. It's like, it's fully showing up to both sides, to both the two sides, as opposed to going
polarized.
Yeah. So one extreme to the other. It's like, it's actually bringing them both together, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. And you touched on another really important thing in that as well, is that so much of this too, so we both work with the journey of self-mastery, and we work with those who are on that journey of self-mastery, or seriously wanting to pursue that journey of self-mastery. And a huge part of that is that you absolutely do trust that you're being cared for by life, but you don't just hand it over to the divine will take care of me, and I don't show up and I don't take the actions and so on. It's, you have to show up and take the inspired actions to see what your part in things are, even while relaxing into the arms of life holding you.
Yeah.
That's critical.
That's absolutely essential, because it just doesn't happen by sitting there and, I trust everything. No, it's totally, but I think that is an essential part. Like, I think you need to be in an expanded trusting space to
absolutely
hear the insight, and to be able to kind of take the inspired action, actually have the kind of coming from a space where, you know, you're not lunging at things from a place of mad panic and fear and protectiveness, but you're actually taking your action, trusting that like life is with you, and you know, showing up with you. Does that sound?
It just brought up really funny imagery. That's all. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Our analogies can be quite funny.
Yeah.
What was the imagery?
You don't want to know. Let's not go there. Yeah, that's really, really well described. It's so much about the combination of so many different things, isn't it? It's showing up in your life with the expanded awareness, still doing the actions, but without the human level programming. It's nuanced, isn't it? It's really, really nuanced. It's a nuanced journey.
Many different layers to it, yeah, which is why both of us have trained and practiced on, you know, so many different levels. You know, it's not just one thing. We're doing, you know, multiple approaches and modalities and offerings through our work and in the work that we do within our own journey and with
Absolutely.
our own self. It's never just this is the thing, and then it's just many different facets, but it's actually weaving them together so that they're actually simplified as well, you know, so it's not like overwhelming.
Absolutely, which is a highly skilled practice.
It is.
That in itself, even, it's quite difficult to describe what we actually do because it's so multidimensional. It's not one faceted at all. It's got many different facets that all work together.
Yeah.
And that can be applied in a variety of different, infinite varieties of different formats, depending on the needs of the unique individual and so on. Absolutely. And I do think, honestly, though, that when somebody resonates with us, they can tell, okay, there's something here, even though it's not in a neat little package necessarily.
Exactly. And that's where I struggled with for a long time, was trying to describe like and condense down what I do. When you know, even though the words might be making sense to whoever's listening to this, and you know, you understand the language and stuff, but it really is like that resonance of just having a knowing. Because I know that myself, like with all things that I've done, like even with the runes and fragrance alchemy, it was not something that I understood or was like had figured out mentally. It was just an inner knowing, and I was just like, that's the next thing I'm meant to do.
Absolutely.
There's something in that. I don't understand it cognitively yet, but I'm gonna, you know, I know completely and inherently that that's what I'm meant to do.
It's so important to trust that, isn't it?
Completely. Yeah. And just trust that you know that, and also that you know, all of this is all meant to happen because it's not just coming from, say, individuals doing it. It's actually what's happening on the earth right now, and all of these beautiful tools have come through for people who have this uniqueness about themselves, and they're on their journey, and the mainstream stuff isn't necessarily serving them in the way it used to, or, you know, isn't serving them, and they feel like, what's next? And they're just searching, and they're kind of finding stuff, but it's not quite resonating, or it's not quite true. You know, there's like there's layers of it that are kind of, I get that. You know, they might read you up about different types of energy work like Reiki or IET or any of these things, but then there's a point where it's like, is there something beyond that?
It's just not quite hitting the mark.
It's just not, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, both of us work with Means tools, and when you find them and you actually apply them, you know that's they're the tools for you. They're the tools for you.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like both of us, which is a little bit different, but you know, it's a relevant analogy where we both have MacBook computers now, Mac laptops, and we previously didn't.
Interested to see where you're going with this.
But, you know, it's like the other thing was maybe doing the work, but it was like not to the level that you wanted it. And then when you get this,
yes,
you know, it's like, so it's maybe doing similar things, but like when you get this, you're like, okay, this is the tool that I was looking for.
Absolutely. And how did I live without it for so long?
How did I live without it? I think that's where Almeen's work is like, how did I I've just been waiting for this, to hear it and to know that about myself, because nothing else actually makes sense out there until you actually, you know, really kind of find out, okay, this is who I am, and this is the way that I'm meant to operate, and not meant to operate under the normal human programs. But at the same time, it's not that you're to get anywhere away. It's actually about us embodying and flourishing uniquely where we are and where our lives are.
Precisely. It's about evolving your awareness of yourself so that you're actually able to be free even whilst walking amongst the world, really, isn't it?
Beautifully put, beautifully put.
On my part, I found on my journey, I was exploring the spiritual journey for a very long time, but there was only so far I could go until I found Amin's work. And when I found her, it was like, this is the missing key. She's taken me to levels that I never could have reached alone. It just made everything make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
go
ahead.
I just think that it's I think there's like a huge call for this now to really come out on a much, not like into the full mainstream, but just really out there into the world, so that people who are meant to hear it can hear it more, and can actually see how it is relevant to them and how it will help them to, unfold who they are on a level that they've never accessed before.
Absolutely. So we were saying earlier that one of the things that we're noticing at the moment, I'm certainly noticing this hugely right now. I have a lot of people contacting me who are in this position. Many are finding that they've come to a point where just nothing is making sense in terms of mainstream spirituality. They've looked everywhere. Maybe they've worked with older healing modalities in the past, and suddenly it's just not, it's like there's no substance to it anymore, sort of thing. And they're seeking for, what on earth do I do next? And also, I feel weirder than I've ever felt in my entire life. And it's because there is an awakening call right now for those of us who are like us, like you and me, to recognize who we really are and to take up the mantle of our true work and the tools that are really for us. There's such a palpable, it's like a cosmic trigger has gone off,
It's like a call, it's like a siren has gone out, even though you can't.
That signal, yeah.
Like before we started recording, I actually started crying because I was just like, oh my God, like this is, not to say, oh, things are more or less important, but I was like, this is so essential that we actually express this out now, so the people that are awakening can hear it and find it and, access what they need to access now for them to realize who they are and be saved so much, anxiety and stress and turmoil that's going on right now when you're not actually living who you are and like your true self, and all of these things that you're like, when you hear it, you're like, there's something in that. What is that? Like, what is that? I need to hear more about that.
That's beautifully described. And like you said earlier, just trusting that, knowing there's something here, even though it might not make any sense, is definitely something to pursue.
Completely. And yeah, it's just wanted to say, yeah, it's like, what did I say? Oh yeah, so it's like, for me, like using nutrition, it's really moving beyond the duality of like food and supplements, and this is the right way to treat your body, and that's not the right way to treat your body, and the authorities outside of yourself and all of these things are external, and I need to rely on all external elements to support me physically. And it's not to say that we're going from, we're not leaving that behind, but we're able to actually come from a place of knowing from our own body and our own being what it is that we need to, how do we need to eat, and what kind of things do we need to be giving to ourselves to support ourselves to fully awaken our bodies and fully bring parts that are maybe showing us different signs. How can we actually bring them into our full expression? And it's a completely different way of the old style, which is like, you have a problem, what's the problem, you need to fix it, and to put all these things in, because there's lack. It's actually coming from a completely different perspective, where all of that wholeness is already there, and you're using the different foods and supplements maybe as a very refined tool, in a way that you're actually discovering your own power through it.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's absolutely beautifully described, Ashley. There was something else I wanted to touch on briefly earlier as well. You know, just the thing about I was describing for us, even you know, for us, it's almost difficult. You just nailed it beautifully. So this point kind of, you've wrecked my point that I was going to say.
You're taking me like about 5 years to actually say that.
It's tricky to nail it down because it's so multidimensional.
I'm like, how do I say this to people? I do nutrition. I'm like, no, that doesn't work.
No. But I encounter this so much in my work, you know, everybody who's like us, because I work with a lot of visionaries who are trying to find, how do I fulfill my purpose, if you will? How do I, it's a lot about, you know, people wanting to set up their business, which is really setting up your soul's full expression in physical life.
Yeah.
But everybody has the same difficulty who's like us. It's like you're so multidimensional. How do you encapsulate what you actually do?
Mm-hmm.
And the point is that we just can't do it in the ordinary way that is taught, for example, in business schools and so on and so forth. It's not going to work for us.
Yeah.
So we have to become comfortable with being our full, multidimensional, multifaceted, wildly original and out-of-the-box selves, and knowing that we're not supposed to confine ourselves into some tiny little definition of it's just this in a static, linear way.
Completely. I love that, because that's what I struggled with for maybe 2 years, because, you know, I moved my business online, so I've been obviously working and refining and putting out my messages on my website and Facebook and everything. And it was like that traditional advice is like, narrow it down into a niche that people can, you know, find you. And I was just like, that used to make me feel so stifled and so angry. I was like, maybe that's one part, that's not all of me. I have to kind of express all these different parts of myself. And yeah, there's no one way to do that. It's actually just finding your own expression with that, whilst also using like the different tools like websites and, you know, the different very valuable physical tools that are there, you know, that are the foundation of having a business and all these different things that we need, but not allowing them to stifle us, but actually using them as a tool.
That is beautifully described.
Well, mastery doesn't come overnight anyway. It's not an overnight process, and it's an ongoing journey. And it's like, I suppose we're at a stage where we have so much knowledge and skill and experience to this point, and we are ongoing on this journey, that it's really a huge passion and joy to be able to share this. Both of us like to be able to share it fully. For me, it's like there's no greater joy in the world than to do this and to share it with who the people that are actually totally open to hearing this, because it's like, it's not about just saying it to everyone, because we're not talking to everyone.
Absolutely.
We're talking to people that are out there that this calls to them. It's like part of their DNA. Well, their DNA is activated and they feel enlivened by it, even though maybe on a cognitive level or mental level, they're like, I don't really know what those words mean exactly, but they are just music to my ears and to my soul.
It's like we're singing a silent song that goes beyond the actual words. Thank God, because the words probably don't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And hallelujah is all I say. Yeah, it's like, because for ages and ages and ages, and I've been saying this to you, I was like, I'm a midwife. I midwife people and help to midwife them in their, you know, and for ages that didn't really make any sense, because I was kind of thinking, what am I midwifing? But now I know, like, the process that we're undergoing ourselves and when we're working with clients, it is a midwifing process, and that's just the word that kind of has come to me. I know you use different languaging for your own approach, but it is that like you were saying, isn't it, you're drawing forth what it is that person's unique purpose is, and
Absolutely.
and it really is, like, because it's already there. It's just like, it's being able to remove whatever is obscuring it, or whatever is like an overlay that's preventing them from actually being able to see it and being able to experience it, and being able to actually see how they can follow it through as an actual real life, real physical thing that they're actually creating.
That is beautifully described. Ah.
Yeah, so it's quite a journey, but I think you couldn't have it any other way, because you know, it's
Be a bit boring, really, wouldn't it?
yeah, we'd be like, what would we do now?
Yeah, we've signed up for the high adventure.
The high adventure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I know you shared before, you were saying just that, I think that's a really, really good thing, maybe before we finish up, is about how, you know, you say, you were saying about the vision of, say, your healing center, and I have that as well, but it's like, what actually has to go before that?
Ah, yes, absolutely.
That's like a really large vision to have. And how does that even come about? You know, like, what is actually involved to achieve these things?
Absolutely. And what we were saying was that it's your own evolutionary process, you know, and we coach people through that in our own individual ways. But ultimately, if you have a big vision to fulfill, it's your evolutionary process that actualizes that. Can't be skipped, can't be walked around, can't be walked over, can't be walked under. You have to actually go through that, and you just can't do it in any other way. And that's what we midwife, you know, I use a different term, but it's essentially the same process in different ways. And what I love actually is the perspective of how empowering it is to do that, you know. It's easy to look at it as, oh, that's too hard, it's too scary, I don't want to. But if you look at it as, what greater privilege is there than to be able to go through my own evolutionary process and keep aware of the grand adventure of that. You know, we were saying grand adventure, but that is an actual legit, really valuable perspective. If you see it as the grand adventure of your own self-evolution, it's thrilling. Even when it's rocky, it's a thrill. It's fabulous. Why would you want anything else, you know?
Yeah. And also that perspective as well, Ciara, just as you're saying it, helps you to relax into the challenges and all the different facets that are required of you to expand and evolve in your own self. It's like there's no massive rush to get there, because yes, you might have the kind of the guidance of, I'm going to have a healing center, I'm going to do all these things, but it's the journey, and it's an ongoing journey. Because even if you get to that stage where you actually are running a healing center and you're doing all these things, you need to have all these practices in place anyway to even be able to hold, sustain, manage, and do all these things. So it's like, just actually enjoy your process and relax into it, and also stay disciplined and stay focused. But it's like, but relax into that discipline.
Absolutely. That's beautifully described. Relax into the discipline. I love to view it as just relaxing into the blossoming of your own being. That totally gets rid of any perspective of going anywhere or having to do anything. You're just relaxing into the blossoming. And when you do that, ironically, you're very productive. A lot gets done. Yeah.
Actually, that is so beautiful, because at the start of this year in January, I had that. I have a little picture I'm just looking at there in my office, and it's like, when the flower blossoms, I'm just doing this like a flower blossoms fully, the bees will come. So that's our job, is to be able to fully unfold our full blossoming, and all those things will start to come in when we're in that. And that's an ongoing thing. It's like, you don't just, it's not an event. I'm blossomed, here I am, I'm done. I'm fabulous, Ciara, look at me. It's like, you know, it's an ongoing unfolding. I have the field, and you're like over there, and I'm like, hey, fabulous over here, blossoming. You're like, you're not done yet. That you have to keep going with that one.
Well, the thing is as well, if you just blossomed, your petals would fall off as well. Whereas if it's a perpetual blossoming, there's no end to the endless array of blossoming that you can continuously do. We're starting to sound like nutters now, you realise
exactly, that? Yeah. Like, going quite far into this now, and then it's like the petals start regenerating. You know, we're like into a whole new energy source, and yeah.
So in a nutshell, this was really we did this in honor of all of the beautiful beings like us, and including us, who are finding that something somewhere from deep within their being is just calling them to find a new understanding of who they really are, and to find support and help and assistance to step into that. please know that now is the time, and all of the support in the world is there. And it's such a privilege to be able to connect with each and every one of you who might listen to this, and who perhaps want to come and talk to us as well. You have a free Facebook community, and so do I, so we should say the names of those in case people want to come and chat.
Absolutely. So there are virtual living rooms. So my virtual living room is called Energy is Your Currency Community.
Mine is the Luminous Being Evolutionary Portal.
And we'll put the two links so you can click down on the just below this video. So you can go press to join our groups, because I know sometimes they're a long word. So
yeah.
Straight away. So we absolutely welcome anyone who feels this calls to them and it fully resonates and activates. And yeah, we're ready and waiting for you. How to support you and have fun together as well. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much, Ciara. This has been amazing. I love this conversation. Hopefully one of many, many more to come. I know that we could talk for multiple hours on end about all of this and go into all the facets on a deeper level. So thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Aisling. It's been a treat as always.
Thanks, Ciara.
Much love.
Bye.
Bye.